Yesterday, Piyush Goyal delivered a message to Indian startups.
What are India's startups doing today? We are focused on food delivery apps, turning unemployed youth into cheap labor so the rich can get their meals without moving out of their house. And against that, what does a Chinese startup do? Work on developing electric mobility, battery technologies, and with that, they're today dominating the electric mobility ecosystem. We are very proud of what India has done. But are we the best in the world as yet? Not yet. Should we aspire to be? Or are we going to be happy being delivery boys and girls? Look at the second one. I've been going through a lot of our startup success stories, and when I go all over the country, we often have startup presenting to us what work they're doing. Fancy ice cream and cookies. In fact, I know at least 3 or 4 billionaires whose children make on one brand or the other very fancy ice creams and cookies and run a very successful business, and I have no complaint against that. But is that the destiny of India? क्या भारत का भविष्य उससे संतुष्ट है? Healthy ice cream, zero gluten free, whatever, I don't know. Vegan, ये सब शब्द लगा के अच्छी पैकेजिंग करके हम स्टार्टअप बोलते हैं अपने आप को. ये स्टार्टअप नहीं है, ये एंटरप्रेन्योरशिप है, ये बिजनेस है. दूसरी तरफ सेमीकंडक्टर्स में ग्रोथ हो रही है. आर्टिफिशियल इंटेलिजेंस खुद की अपने देश की बन रही है लोगों की. दे आर इन्वेस्टिंग हेवीली टू बिकम सेल्फ रिलायंट, building chips, AI models, which will prepare the nation for the future. भारत ने क्या करना है? आइसक्रीम बनानी है या चिप्स बनाने हैं?
Goyal, who is India's Union Commerce Minister, made this statement at an event called Startup Mahakumbh in New Delhi. Frankly, I have a lot of questions, starting with the name itself, but I'll hold back and stick to the message that Mr. Goyal made, which was essentially derived from a viral meme that was forwarded on LinkedIn and WhatsApp a few weeks back. And that question was, why are Indian startups like this? Just look at China. This is Praveen Gopalkrishnan, and this edition of the Nutgraf is titled India is the Mark. Piyush Goyal had a message for India startups, but what about the message to India itself? As Piyush Goyal's remarks went viral, India's startup leaders, executives, and thought leaders took a break from making Studio Ghibli style AI images and decided to hop on to the next trend, which is posting their thoughts on Goyal's comments on LinkedIn and Twitter. I could read out some of them, but they're all painfully tedious and quite predictable. Most of them are variants of don't blame startups, look at how many jobs we created. Or China also started with food delivery before they built deep tech companies. Or the more aggressive version, maybe you should help startups instead of blaming them. A few leaders, quite predictably, even agreed with the commerce ministers and exhorted startups to take it as constructive criticism. These are all valid points of view. But as readers of this newsletter know by now, I'm more drawn to incentives than events. In other words, I'm less interested in what Piyush Goyal said, and I'm much more intrigued about why he said it. On Wednesday, US President Donald Trump declared war on, well, almost everyone. He announced a sweeping new set of tariffs that apply to all US imports, intended to correct what Trump terms are unfair economic practices that have hurt American exporters and prevented manufacturing and jobs from taking off in the United States. According to the New York Times, quote, the tariffs put a heavy burden on some of America's biggest trading partners, including China, Japan, Germany, India, South Korea, Taiwan, and Vietnam. End quote. And how did the rest of the world respond to the US tariffs? Well, on the same day that India's commerce minister was busy chastising startups, China's commerce minister struck back against the US. It levied a 34% reciprocal tariff on imports from the United States. It also placed restrictions on the export of rare earth metals, which are used to manufacture batteries and electric vehicles. And for good measure, it filed a lawsuit against the United States at the World Trade Organization. This is a significant escalation. China was the first major country to retaliate against the US, but it won't be the last one. The European Union also signaled that it wasn't averse to taking drastic measures of its own. France has suggested that it would levy a tax on online services from the US. Other countries like Japan and South Korea responded with statements that they were alarmed how the US actions were regrettable. And what about India, which got hit with a 26% tariff? What is India's response? Well, to be honest, India's stated position seems to be a bit of at least we are not as bad off as the others, and a bit of this isn't going to affect us much. There's some truth in both of this, but India's actions say something else altogether. In the past few weeks, India has been feverishly giving the US concession after concession, dropping barriers that existed earlier. India scrapped import duties on almost 8,500 products, including bourbon whiskey and expensive motorcycles. It also scrapped a 6% tax on ads from foreign digital platforms. It let Starlink enter the telecom market. India didn't do all of these things out of the goodness of its heart. It did it because it really had no option. China can fight back because it has things the US wants. It has leverage. The EU can band together and figure out options. Japan and Korea make high end products that US consumers use. And India? Well, there's not much leverage it commands unless it creates something that it can sell internationally. And apart from some pharma products, well, there isn't much else. This is the source of frustration for Piyush Goyal. And you don't have to take my word for it. Just listen to what he said yesterday.
We are aspiring to do an agreement with EU, the 27 nation bloc, with UK, with USA, with Peru, with Chile, with Australia, with New Zealand, with Oman, with Bahrain, Qatar. Our ambitions are to compete with the best in the world. With every one of them, we talk of a startup bridge. But I can't take to them grocery stores and say this is India's offering for startups.
Piyush Goyal externalized his frustration of not having leverage in bilateral deals at startups. But over the last few months, other leaders have also brought this up. One of those leaders was Uday Kotak. Here he is yesterday talking at another event where he asked the question, why are there no global Indian consumer brands?
Therefore, if you ask yourself a very honest question, where are we on? Give me one global Indian consumer brand. That you go to any corner of the world, from Boston to Paris to Bolivia to China to Sydney, where the global consumer recognizes an Indian consumer brand for what it is. Frankly, I have struggled to find one. There are small pockets where progress has been made, but a global Indian consumer brand, and the comparisons I'll give: Apple, Meta, Google, Coke, Pepsi, P&G brands, Lever brands, a Chanel in Europe, BMW, Audi cars, Italian brands, Samsung, LG, Hyundai, Sony, Panasonic, Toyota, BYD, Lenovo, TikTok. India? I wish.
The question of why India does not have brands, technology, or startups that give it leverage internationally is something that India is asking with more urgency and frustration right now because the current global climate has suddenly turned. We can go deeper into why we are in this place right now. I could explain to Piyush Goyal how India's investments in R&D as a percentage of its GDP has been declining consistently over the past several decades. I could explain how India's investments in education have reached historical lows. I could even explain how India's Commerce Ministry created a $23 billion PLI scheme which was supposed to rival China's factories. And just last week, the Commerce Ministry let it lapse after it fell short of its original goals. According to an investigation by Reuters, there were two reasons why the scheme failed. Firms that participated in the program failed to kickstart production, while others that met manufacturing targets found India slow to pay out subsidies. In sector after sector, India has been too slow, too late, too complacent, and refused to play the long game. And today, when the world is on fire, it's looking for whom to blame. One of the things that India is trying to blame is protectionism.
But what is actually holding them back? I think we've got a very protected country. And people are very comfortable in the comfort of our 1.4 billion people. Home market is there, protectionism there. Why should I really try to become a global brand? I'm making enough money.
In some ways, this is the paradox. India's industries and companies demanded protectionism and a level playing field so that they could hold on to India's market. And for the most part, in sector after sector, the state complied and gave it to them. This resulted in companies and startups who tempered their aspirations and thought small and built for India's consumers. And as we know, India's consumers are not as broad nor as deep as we originally imagined. So we got companies that solved Indian problems, like getting Indians to transfer money to each other using QR codes, or to get groceries at home in less than 10 minutes, or to teach courses so that their kids could go to better colleges and schools, or, yes, sometimes to eat vegan ice creams. And we told ourselves that we were making progress and consoled ourselves that at least we were giving jobs to people and didn't think to ask what a nation of hired hands means for the nation itself. The tall walls we created to keep others out also kept Indian companies inside and made their dreams much smaller. And right now, that model is under attack. And so, we are going around trying to figure out who is responsible for this. Maybe it's the startups. Maybe it's the children of billionaires who, according to Piyush Goyal, are building gluten-free ice cream brands. And according to Uday Kotak, are content doing angel investing over running actual businesses. And we look across with envy at China with their deep tech startups, their incredible manufacturing, their EV infrastructure, and wonder, why don't we have any of these? Now, these tall walls that India erected are the ones that are under attack. And this is happening in sector after sector, in industry after industry. One of these sectors is EV. China and US may be in a trade war with each other, but they're also in a war competing fiercely to enter India, a market where India's local car manufacturers aren't able to innovate. Tesla is at the gates coming from America, and BYD is at India's gates coming from China. And well, here is Uday Kotak about BYD.
And I see reports of BYD coming into India. And you guys in media seem to be more worried about Indian auto companies than they are.